Hello, everyone. How are you feeling today? Today, English Story will bring you a tale called Sleeping Beauty. Let the story begin. Once upon a time, there was a king and a queen who wished every day, "If only we had a child." But no matter how much they wished, they still had no children. One day, while the queen was bathing, a frog jumped out of the water onto the shore and said to her, "Your wish shall be granted. Before the year is out, you will give birth to a daughter." What the frog said came true. The queen gave birth to a baby girl who was so beautiful that the king was overjoyed and held a great feast to celebrate. He invited all his relatives, friends, and acquaintances, and also the wise women, so they would bless and care for the child with all their hearts. There were 13 wise women in the kingdom, but the king had only 12 golden plates. So one of them was not invited. The celebration was grand. As the feast was coming to an end, the wise women stepped forward to bestow their gifts upon the princess. The first gave her virtue. The second gave her beauty. The third gave her wealth, and so on, each bestowing a gift of the finest qualities one could ever wish for in the world. When the 11th wise woman had just given her blessing, the 13th, the one who had not been invited, suddenly appeared. Wanting revenge for being left out, she stormed into the hall without greeting anyone, marched straight to the princess, and shouted, "When the princess turns 15, she will prick her finger on a spindle and fall down dead." Without another word, she turned and left the hall. Everyone was horrified. Then the 12th wise woman stepped forward. She had not yet given her blessing, and while she could not undo the curse, she could soften it. She said, "The princess will not die, but she will fall into a deep sleep for 100 years. To prevent this fate, the king issued a decree banning all spinning in the entire kingdom. All the blessings of the wise women came true. The princess grew up to be beautiful, kind, graceful, and intelligent, loved by everyone who saw her. The fateful event happened just as the princess turned 15. That day, the king and queen were away, and the princess was alone at home. Wandering through the palace, she explored every room until she came to a narrow spiral staircase that led to a small door. A rusty key was in the lock. She turned it, and the door opened. Inside, an old woman sat spinning diligently. "Hello, Granny. What are you doing?" the princess asked. "I'm spinning," the old woman replied. "What is that thing that spins so fast?" asked the princess. No sooner had she touched the spindle than the curse took effect. She pricked her finger and immediately fell onto a nearby bed and fell into a deep sleep. At that very moment, the entire palace also fell asleep. The king and queen, who had just returned and entered the hall, also closed their eyes and slept. The entire court fell asleep. Horses in the stables, dogs in the yard, pigeons on the roof, flies on the wall, all slept. Even the fire in the hearth stopped flickering. The roasting meat stopped sizzling. The cook, who was about to scold the kitchen boy, let go of his hair and fell asleep. The wind ceased to blow. Not a single leaf moved on the trees outside the castle. Around the palace, thorny rose bushes began to grow thicker and thicker until they covered the entire castle, and not even the flag on the roof could be seen. People in the land passed on the tale of the beautiful sleeping princess. They called her Princess Briar Rose. From time to time, princes who had heard the legend would try to get through the thorns, but they were held fast and caught within. Years passed. One day, a prince came to the kingdom. An old man told him that behind the thorn hedge stood a castle where a beautiful princess named Briar Rose had been sleeping for 100 years, along with the king, the queen, and the entire court. Many had tried to reach her, but all had failed. The prince said, "I'm not afraid. I want to go and see the beautiful Briar Rose." The old man tried to stop him, but the prince would not listen. The 100 years of the curse had passed, and the time had come for the princess to awaken. As the prince approached the thorn bushes, they miraculously parted, blooming with large, vibrant roses that cleared a path for him without scratching him. As he passed, the bushes closed behind him. In the palace courtyard, he saw the sleeping horses and dogs. On the roof, pigeons slept with their heads tucked under their wings. Inside, he saw flies still on the walls. The cook with his hand raised as if to strike the kitchen boy, and the maid sitting motionless with a half-plucked black chicken in her lap. In the main hall, the court slept. On their thrones, the king and queen slumbered peacefully. Everything was still. He could hear his own breath. Finally, he reached the room where Princess Briar Rose slept. She was so dazzlingly beautiful that he could not take his eyes off her. He bent down and kissed her. As soon as his lips touched hers, she opened her eyes and looked at him lovingly. Hand in hand, they went down the stairs. The king, queen, and all the court awoke. Horses in the courtyard stood and shook themselves. Hunting dogs leapt up, wagging their tails. Pigeons stretched their wings and flew off into the fields. Flies resumed crawling on the walls. The fire in the hearth blazed up again. The roasting meat sizzled. The cook slapped the kitchen boy, who screamed. The maid continued plucking the chicken. The wedding of the prince and princess Briar Rose was celebrated with great joy and splendor. And they lived happily ever after. And that's the end of the story. See you again in the next one. Goodbye.